Hello to everybody out there in podcast land, Zoom land, Facebook land, YouTube land, wherever you're listening to this. Now you get this podcast in so many lands. This is none other than Rabbi Pinchas Landis of 14455 East Carroll Boulevard. That's where I'm quarantined here, running everything out of my home study. And I am here with our one and only awesome, super Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Gamliel Nassan Spero Halevi, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Avos Torah of Zoom meeting ID 135679247. And it is great to be here for our post-Pesach episode and transmit in so many different fashions now. Rabbi Spero, how are you?
Good, Baruch. I also want to give another mode. Part of my following is recording this on their Betamax. So those don't forget to set the record time on your Betamax to all those for all my followers. You have Betamax, Landis?
I have no clue what that is. Is that one of those like BitTorrent things to transmit videos? Like I don't even know what it is.
Betamax and VHS came out together.
Oh, right, exactly.
And for a while, Betamax was in the lead. And then I'm still using Betamax.
I hear that. It's.
There's a guy in my shul in Buffalo, really interesting guy. He was once talking about something. He was like, "Oh, I have all those on video on my Betamax." I was like, "This is it for like year 2000." And even then was at it. I was like, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Where do you get tapes from? They haven't made them since the early 80s." He said, "I go like to Goodwill, and you always can find a few old tapes." He like taped it's like I'm not even these show like in the 80s, like some show you like, what was that show called? I don't remember.
Mork and Mindy?
Hunter.
What?
Hunter?
Hunter, I don't remember that. I remember Mork and Mindy.
One of these cop shows, whatever.
Yes,
Mork and Mindy was another show. That's even before my time a little. That's like in the late 70s. I was a little kid when that show was on.
Yeah.
But in any case, yeah. So all those Betamax recorders out there, get your Betamax ready.
Yeah, got it, Betamax. It reminds me, you have many different technologies like that. When I was growing up or, already into my teen years, I believe, or maybe post-teen years, I don't remember, when people wanted to save or record something, they had to TiVo it. If you remember TiVo, and TiVo got like knocked out of the market by DVR or whatever was next, and I don't even know if TiVo exists anymore.
But it's interesting now. Someone asked me the other day, he said, "What happened to Skype?" He said, for years, the definition of meeting someone on video, the guy one of my favrusas left town. So for a while, we used to learn over Skype. I mean, it was terrible. It never held the picture for more than 30 seconds at a time. I guess that's what happened to it. But that was like, even still people today, I heard someone say, "Let's Skype over Zoom."
Right. Skype. It's interesting. Skype is a great story of. I actually use Skype regularly. Not through Partners in Torah, but through my guys' marketing, through my digital marketing efforts. We use Skype because we have just to keep in touch with some of our staff. Skype was, once they got it right, it did become the industry standard of video chatting and is still a really a wonderful product. I think the answer to what happened to Skype is Zoom. Zoom's come in here
But had you ever heard of Zoom before? I got Zoom. I just paid for my first month. I got the first month free. So whatever, it's $16, an amazing deal.
Yeah.
So I've had Zoom for 4.5 weeks, and I heard about it 4 days before that. 5 weeks ago, I'd never heard of Zoom in my life, and now it's like part of everyday sprach. It's just interesting that they took over. So maybe there's like a good muscle here that there's an idea of it. It says in the Gemara in Shabbos that one of the questions a person's going to be asked at the end of 120 when they appear in front of the Bez Neshama, in front of the heavenly court. One of the questions we asked was Kavati Itam Torah. But it's a machlokes. The Gemara said it's the second question asked, and Taisha says really it's the first question asked. Whatever it is, it's one of the first questions you'll be asked. And the Shafal Hirsch said, besides the simple meaning, the Pashut Pshat meaning of did you set aside time to study Torah every day, it also has a deeper meaning of did you make sure that it says there's always a disagreement. Do we have to change the Torah for the time, or change the time for the Torah? So Hirsch says it's telling you to just change the times for the Torah. the Torah is always the gold standard. So maybe it's a reminder that we always have to adapt or die. If a person doesn't adapt, I think it's true in everything, in ruchnius, in gashmius, in business, in sports, right? If a guy, you've ever watched, this is like at the time, like the 80s in basketball. The 80s in basketball was the layup line. I don't know if you were a fan back then. The early 80s with the Celtics and the Sixers and the Lakers, that was the point of basketball, was a layup line, right? You ran up and down the court and shot layups. And a few guys shot three-pointers, Larry Bird, Andrew Toney. You had a few guys, Michael Cooper on the Lakers, but it wasn't a three-point game. Now the game is a three-point game. The game is adapted. It has the same rules, but they've adapted within the element of the game. So maybe that's what Hirsch is saying, that we also, right now, we're adapting. I think this has been, and we've spoken about this before, the great Kiddush Hashem of this situation has been the Zoom, like we'll call it, the Zooming effect, whatever name you want to give it. So much Torah through Zoom every day. Baruch Hashem, the yeshiva, I'm so proud of the Bakram. Amazing. I can't say enough great things about them. We've been Zooming with the yeshiva. We had a Zoom Erev Pesach, 3 hours before Yontif, where we learned the Hilchos of the Carbon Pesach together. And when do you get to do that? In a typical year, Erev Pesach is just too busy. There's too much running out of the house. Too much. I said to them, when we're all here, let's do it. We went on Zoom together, and we learned a couple of the Mishnayos, and we did some of the Rambam. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden has a special as a tefillah, and he goes through the whole seder of it. And it was just an unbelievable experience. And it's interesting. I told Shalom about all the shiurim that we're doing, and she was very happy. When I told him the Erev Pesach thing, he was crazy. He was like, he was just so happy. He was like, so it's been. I think this has been a great example of how we're kavat itam with Torah. We've changed the time. So we've been kaveh the time to fit in with the Torah. We've used the technology of today, the Zoom and these other types of things, and phone, and we've used it in such a great way of Kiddush Hashem and our blessed Torah. I don't know. It's just we should all. I think like Klal Yisrael has accomplished such a great thing in the last few weeks. I know we've been missing, Minyanim, all that stuff, but Baruch Hashem, we've been amazing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with I agree with all that. I mean, it's first of all, I think it's interesting to point out that as you were praising Zoom, your Zoom was flickering out a little bit.
Was it really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, it was. So I think there's a very profound idea there, quite possibly. But yeah, it's crazy how Zoom jumped in and became the industry standard over Skype, over Google Meet. Google Meet was the one that Google was it was like neck and neck between Zoom and Google Meet as far as this goes. Like no one's using Google Meet anymore because
I didn't know Google Meet was. The first day we started it, I told the Bachram, let's do Google Hangouts.
That's Google Meet. Yeah, same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the Bachram said to me, the Google Hangouts is closed, and it is closed. It's now called Google Meet. It's a different app apparently. So one of the Bachram has recommended we do Zoom, and
yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll just say again a story about just iterating for Partners in Torah. So we use something called G Suite, which is Google's like company platform, like your internal company platform. So every time I make a calendar invite, it automatically makes a Meet link and call and all that. It's just an automatic feature. So I used to use it, and like people would always have trouble signing on because you have to use your Google account. If they sign on with a different Google account than the calendar invite, they won't let them in. It just was never as glad as Zoom, and that's why Zoom just jumped in and hey, here we are.
People like easy things. It's just
exactly. But you know what? I not to start conspiracy theories, but that the founder of Zoom, I forget the guy's name, but he is from China. I don't think he's from Wuhan, but he is from China. So maybe, who knows, possibly not trying to spread.
During this kufa, we've all gone through, especially I think people like, when I was a bacher, I used to love, I probably should have mentioned this in public, Stephen King books. I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous one.
Never into that.
He has a book called The Stand, and his books are very scary, as is known. I remember reading them in high school. In the Ner Yisrael dorm. This was major contraband in the Ner Yisrael dorm.
I'm sure.
Even King books were major. You had to hide them. So Rabbi Friedman would not, on one of his inspections of the dorm, he didn't really inspect the dorm in person. They would come around and they'd find a Stephen King book. He said, think about a place to hide them. So one of the books was The Stand. And that book is basically about a super flu, a major pandemic. It's very frightening. And reading that book is just like, so sometimes to me, the scariest time of day during this whole thing, by day, I'm able to be optimistic. Sometimes at night, I'm having a very tough time falling asleep. And at night, my imagination runs away with me. What if this doesn't end? What if it gets more serious? But I think that's part of the Avodah. Part of the Avodah is that a person lets go and he realizes, Ein Od Milvado, right? That there's no one but the Rebbeinu Shalom, and Hashem is running the world. I think that's been one of the lessons here. And it's a constant avodah. It's easier said than done, just to say, yeah, sure, no one but Hashem, fine. But to really live that way has been a challenge, and especially like I said, late at night, lying in bed, to me, that's the spookiest time. And I fall asleep. Fell asleep last night at 4:00. I'm falling asleep crazy late. Just not worrying. Just I don't know. It must be something. I don't know what it is, but
I'm starting to think it's me and people close to me, because my wife has the same problem. Also, she's just it's caused her tremendous anxiety. She Bichlal will not leave the house. When I leave, I got to go with the mask and the gloves, and I have actually a vat of a Purell in my trunk before I come back in the house.
I'm not anxious is the right word. I just, like I said, during the day I'm fine. At night, I sometimes do get like just these fears. But like I said, I think that's the Avodah. The end of there were people. I read a lot of books. I'm sure many of us did. A lot of books, a lot of learning interesting things. So one of the books I wanted to mention today, I read a book about the author of Navardik. And it's Art Scroll put it out recently. I recommend everyone read it.
Who wrote it?
It was written in Hebrew first. I don't know translator. I don't remember the name. It's for a few reasons. It's amazing. Number one, you think one person can't change the world, but he was a businessman, and he met Rishol Salanter. It's an amazing story. It's good to read. And Rishol Salanter, he basically realized that he could give more to the world. He opened a whole network of yeshivas. He was the ultimate can-do personality. He just kept on moving and building and opening yeshivas. It was a story. One of his talmidim after the war, in Gershon Liebman, was Nifter. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Navardik in France. He was a massive gadol, not so known. He lived in somewhere in I forgot the name of the city, even in France. But an unbelievable gadol. So after the war, he was in Bnei Brak a little bit. So someone saw him. He said, "Oh, Gershon, what are you doing now?" He goes, "I opened the yeshiva." He goes, "Wow." He said, "Who's the Rosh Yeshiva?" He said, "Me." He said, "Who's the mashkiach?" He said, "Me." He said, "How many talmidim do you have?" He goes, "Right now I have one." Me. But he wasn't joking. He was trying to say that everything is about building. I'm building yeshiva now. And eventually they opened a few in Eretz. So then he went to outside Paris somewhere. And the Bianca Lewinsky and others continued. And the Stipler actually continued building in Eretz Yisrael, building up the Navardik network of yeshivas. But it's unbelievable. The whole can-do, and everything was based on someone was talking, said you would think the author would be like a morose person, a somber person, because he's very big into Musar. Right. The opposite. He said he was an extremely, almost carefree personality because he never worried. He said everything is just, will I succeed? I don't know. But I'm going to make my effort. That I know I'm going to do, and therefore, what's the worry? And it's just the building, and these guys were unbelievable. I was reading it. I also got another book called The Stipler. It's in Hebrew. It came out from Eliak, a biography on the Stipler, which also I've been enjoying a lot. And one of the things there, a guy came to him. He wanted to start a kollel in a very small city in Eretz Yisrael, mostly Chiloni, mostly non-from city. And the guy came to the Stipler and said, "I want to be honest with you." He said, "I want to start it, and I know it's a good idea. I know I can accomplish a lot there, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail, and it's going to be bizyonus, and I'm going to be embarrassed." I think a very normal, healthy feeling. The Stipler said, "Look," he goes, I'm not people used to come to Stipler, they thought he was a Navi. He didn't like it. He said, "I'm not a Navi. Will you succeed? Will you fail? With your particular endeavor, I can't tell you, but I can tell you one thing. You will succeed because you're going to make an effort. Because let's say it doesn't work. So you've also gained. You've suffered bizyonus, you suffered embarrassment for the Torah. You'll move back to Bnei Brak and life will continue, but you still will have gained. And if you succeed and make the kollel and influence people, it doesn't say what city it was in this, non-religious city. That will also be great. Also remember, Stipler said, if you put the effort in, everything is in the hands of Shemayim. What will happen? But put the effort, and that is called success. I think that's such a great way of looking at life. Success is not defined by our accomplishments necessarily. Success is defined by our efforts and believing in Hashem and trying to do the right thing. And that's all we have to do. And that, like the Chavos says, I think that gives a great amount of comfort afterwards if a person's able to integrate their brain into thinking like that.
Beautiful. I've got to get that safer. And I love the discussion about Navardic, and we don't realize just I forget the number of how many Navardic yeshivas there were
like
before the
40
war.
yeshivas at one point, and they would just open.
Yeah.
And he would send Talmidim. They sent to Bianca Galinsky after they were in Eretz Yisrael already. They told him one day, one of the older Navardikers said to him, "You're going to Chadera, which is like 20 minutes from Bnei Brak." He said, and no infrastructure, no money, nothing. He said, "Here, you have a little bit of money. Get off the bus, find a place to live, and open a base medrash. What's the big deal?" And he did that. Yeah. He went to Chadera with nothing. He got like a shack for him and his wife. He had 2 little kids to live in. And he just went. He went to the shul one day, started knocking on doors. "Hi, I'm opening." They opened everything. Elementary school, base medrash, anybody wanted to learn. You just knock on doors in Chadera. Most people will shut the door in his face, but he got some people and he built the yeshiva. It's just like
unbelievable.
It's such a beautiful example. Like uncheshbainis, no cheshbainis, just thinking, what can I do to build, to help Hashem, to help Klal Yisrael? And it was, I was really taken by the book. So anybody who wants to buy that book, buy it.
Definitely, we'll put a link in the show notes so you can have the link to it. So one book that I actually purchased at Erev Yontiv, even though I knew I wouldn't get to it because I had a number of Pesach things I was reading. I believe I told you, by the way, I'm now, maybe I didn't tell you, I'll tell you now. I'm now writing a column in a fairly new magazine called Kan.
He told me on history.
Yeah. So Baruch Hashem, my first article came out right before I received it right before the last day. So now that I'm a contributor, I'll have to send it to you.
Send it to me.
But now that I'm a contributor, I feel like I have to read the whole magazine now, which it's great stuff. I mean, it is just, if you like history and you like just different history, it's.
Where do I get? Where does one buy this publication?
So I do have to speak to our local stores about getting. I don't think it's carried locally. You have to basically order it from the website kankanjournal.com, I believe, and you can either order per issue. It's sent from England because it's based in England, so it's like $9 an issue. It's like a National Geographic style magazine, like very fancy pictures and glossy pages.
Am I allowed to pay in pounds?
What's that? Yeah.
I want to pay in pounds.
You can definitely pay in pounds. You can pay in rubles. I think they take rubles. By the way, there's an English edition and a Yiddish edition. So if you want the Yiddish edition, you can get that. I did not write my article in Yiddish. Happens to be the Yid behind it, Yossi Quadrat, who's unbelievable Yid. He's a Belzer Chassid. So who's the things he knows. I mean, I thought I knew a lot of history. He's like me and like you, Rabbi Spero, that he loves history, but doesn't per se have a quote education in history, but he knows more than people with PhDs. And I mean, his vast knowledge is unbelievable.
He told me about it. You mentioned to me. I didn't know it was that. I definitely want to read it.
Yeah. I'm also a firm believer right now that those of us, we're all being affected by the pandemic in so many different ways. I recently said to a friend, and I have to figure out how to go with this idea, but this is by far the best Elul I've ever had. I don't know if you agree with that, but as far as the Kabbalos and the changes that I've been able to make during this time, part of it is when you have people who are close to you who are affected. As we know, I've mentioned before, Rav Chaim Aryeh Ginsburg we got a sign of Nisim v'Neflos, of open miracles. I believe it was Erev Yontiv, he was intubated with Machlo, COVID-19, and under intubation went through renal failure, which when someone's in that situation, there's a 95% mortality rate. I mean, only 5% of people in that situation survive. And Baruch Hashem, Erev Yontiv, the last days of Yontiv, he was extubated. He's been now almost a week on just oxygen, and so long road ahead of him. But he's not out of the woods. He's still in critical condition, but not in the situation of 95% mortality. So that's been one of the things that's had a profound effect on me. and just the different kabbalos and things that I've already changed. And I'm trying to think about where I'm thinking, I mean, who knows when it's going to end? Who knows when things are going to change? Who knows when the shuls are going to open up and the yeshivas and the organizations? Like somebody asked me today, when's the next shmorg? I was like, I don't know, 2020, 2022 maybe. I don't know. Like, who knows when the next shmorg is going to be? But one thing that I'm already very focused on is how am I going to hang on to this? And I'll tell you just a few things. I've been thinking through it, and I think I want to start like a WhatsApp group or Facebook group or something called Kabbalos. And the idea being that when you make a Kabbalah or make any goal, really, forget about, I mean, Kabbalah is like our Hebrew word for goal. You know, Kabbalah means to accept something upon yourself. But it's a goal. It's basically you're setting a goal. The whole idea of the New Year's resolution, that came from us. The idea that you go into a new year making Kabbalos, there's nothing that happens when the ball hits at December 31st at midnight or January 1st at midnight that you should make any changes, but they got it straight from us, right? We go into the new year, we make the Kabbalos, the goals, the resolutions, the things we want to change. So as I've seen Baruch Hashem's success of implementing and inculcating certain things in my life over these past few weeks, I'm now focused on now where's the kiyum going to come from? How am I going to make sure that when the world opens up that I still do this? And I'll just share with you one thing I did. And I think anyone can do this is when you have a goal or a Kabbalah or a resolution, it's one thing when you have it in your head. It's another thing when you make a strategy on how to make it real. And then you tell that strategy to somebody else. So one thing, I believe I mentioned this in our last episode, is my davening has been a new davening these past few weeks. And usually I was, it was very rare when I daven b'yechidus, because something davening with the minyan, something I always took very seriously. But my b'yechidus, without a minyan davening was always very sloppy, very quick. Let's just get through it. 15, 20 minute shacharis, just running through it. And I decided really on day one, I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't have to necessarily get the kids ready for, a lot of my regular obligations aren't here. I don't have to get the kids ready for school. They're just turning on Zoom for their classes. I have a lot more time in the day. I'm going to spend more time davening. And my davening it's a whole new davening. It's mamash a new davening.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so I said, how am I going to hold on to that? So I realized something. I said, let me play this out. And I'm going to say my new way of davening, where I first of all, one thing I'm doing is just saying everything. I never said Adon Olam Yigdal at the beginning of davening. I never said L'Shem Yichuds before Talis and Tefillin. I would say Birchas HaShachar, the brachas before Birchas HaShachar, and then the main Birchas HaShachar. Literally, as I was running into shul, on the fly, not paying attention, probably skipping half the words. So I'm doing it mamish, all from a siddur. Saying everything from the beginning up through. It was funny. My daughter said to me the other day, she wakes up as I'm finishing davening. I think this was yesterday, and I was saying the Shisha Zichronos, the 6 remembrances, and I got to, or maybe the Seres Dibros, maybe that's what I was up to. And my daughter says, "Why are you making kiddush?" Because you have either the Dibur or the Zichron, the Shabbos. I forget which one it was, but I said, "How am I going to hold on to this?" So I said, "Well, let me think about it. How much more time would it take than what I do anyways, when I do shvach?" And I realized that to at least start off davening the way I've been starting it off is 10 more minutes. That's it. 10 more minutes at the beginning of davening. So I texted my friend Mordechai Nadov, who davens in the same venue with me. And Mordechai is like clockwork. He's probably always there at least 10 minutes before davening. The guy's at Tzadek, a wonderful guy. So I texted Mordechai. I said, Mordechai, Bli Neder, I'm making a Kabbalah that I want to show up from now on when Minyan starts back up again at 6:30. Because as long as I'm there by 6:30, I can put my tefillin with L'Shem Yichuds and take time for Birchas HaShachar and do everything I need to do before Baruch Shamar, and then still the pace of the minyan is good enough that from Baruch Shamar on I can cover everything. I said, I'm telling you this because I want you to be my mashkiach for this. I want you to watch out for me to make sure I do this. I said, this is your new job. And I think that's maybe something we should think about as we've looked at the things that we successfully changed. Make the game plan. Like I figured out it's only a 10-minute difference from what I was doing. Literally for 10 minutes, I can change my davening, 10 minutes a day. But it's figuring out how am I going to do it. So it means I got to get up and get moving, get to the base measures 10 minutes sooner. And I told someone, I said, it's your job to help make sure I do this. And I think that's what we need to do. You need to make those Kabbalas. You need to write it down. You need to make the plan and tell it to somebody. Get somebody on board to help you. Along those lines, Eschatane Mas Kira Yom, there were always 2 specific people that I was really nichshel with Lashon Hara on. I'll just say it. 2 people I was nichshel a lot, and Rabbi Spero, you're not one of them.
I was about to ask about one of them.
It was not you, but there were 2 other people. And one of the things this past year is we've really gained from in our house is my daughter Ayala is the Mishmeres head in Yavna. and Mishmeres is a wonderful program from the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation to bring awareness and Shmiras Lashon of avoiding Lashon Hara into the schools. And to quote Mrs. Shani Cohen, she told my wife, she said, most people who the Mishmeres had, a funny line, most of the girls who are Mishmeres had just do it for the kavod. But your daughter really takes seriously. Like, I don't know how much kavod comes on being the Mishmeres head, but she's really inculcated a lot of it. And I so along those lines, I said I don't want to speak Lashon Hara about these two people anymore, and I want you to be my mashkiach. And we started at the Shabbos table learning. At each meal, we learn we're using the Chavetz Chaim Yomi. So it has the Sefer Chavetz Chaim and Shmiras Lashon and the same Sefer. So we do whatever one we're up to, either Chavetz Chaim or Shmiras Lashon. We say the Chavetz Chaim's Maxim Lefiv Tefillah now at the Shabbos table. That's something easy. Again, it's 2 minutes.
Good, right? 100%. The main thing is to grow and to elevate and to steig and to not be. I think I mentioned this before. The Alter Sabatka used to say, he said, if someone told me right now I will be the same person for the rest of my life, I couldn't live with myself anymore. Yeah. This is when the Alter was already a gadol, already a recognized person in Kalai. Even Alter was saying that life is always about growth. I saw that Ravad Yosef, he wrote many different svarim. And he held the sefer he was most proud of. I never knew this. I was reading a hesped about him. Was his sefer on Hilchos Nida. Right? I see you have the whole set. He didn't write those.
No. This is Yibia Omer and Yechav Sas over here.
That right.
This is his son, Yalkut Yosef, right here, and that's all his farm. So that's my Sephardi section. So
sefer he was most proud of was his sefer on Hilchos Nida, and he told one of his kids, he said he's afraid to finish it. He's afraid he's going to die afterwards because he feels that Hashem put him in the world to write these chedushim of his on Hilchos Nida. It's for he was an unbelievable guy, the type we haven't seen. I was learning actually. I know this story. I was reading this sefer from Yaakov Moshe Shurkin. He's a Maggid Shir in Lakewood. So he put out a sefer called Pnei Sugyas. So I'm just this Tyron Sugyas. On the back of one of after Shir was right after Rabbis Yosef was definitely writing this. I guess I don't know if he Talmud of Shmuel Arbach. I don't know if he knew Rabbis so well. But he was writing out this idea, but it's an interesting idea, that Ravadia was very hush. I forgot why I'm even about having a tafkid in the world.
No, but he felt that writing that sefer was his tafkid, was his goal.
Was his tafkid in the world. Right? I think rather tafkid. Lashon Hara is always a great place to start. I was thinking about a lot about if you look doing this Navi podcast has made me really think there's a certain Achilles heel in Klal Yisrael, an inability for different groups to get along with each other. And I'm talking about even within the way that Netziv writes in his Akdama to Sefer Breshit, to Sefer Dvarim, even within, I'm talking about the Shomer Torah Mitzvahs groups, an inability to get along. And you see it throughout so many examples.
Time immemorial. I'll give you. Sorry to interrupt you, but a perfect example, and this is again product placement for ConCon. My first ConCon article, it's a column about Jewish queens. So we started with Shlomtziana Malka, and my premise with her is her regency saved Klal Yisrael, and that's my premise. That's what I go through, and how really she put a lot of the efforts into place that made it that when Churban Bayis Sheni happened, Klal Yisrael was able to make the transition to be a nation in exile. This upcoming issue, I'm doing the polar opposite. I'm doing Asalyahu, which is the polar opposite, right? She almost destroyed Klal Yisrael. But the one thing that's absolutely almost the same is the family feuds that went on, right? Right? like you almost they were living at the same time, the same family feud, power struggle with brothers and brothers killing brothers and civil wars. Like this is the same thing, just separated by a couple hundred years.
You see the shape between Shevet Binyamin and Shevet Yehuda. They had you see Shevet Binyamin, and they were Shevet Binyamin were the people who are mentioned as the people fought with David HaMelech, Shimi Ben Gera, these other people, they were great Gedolim. And the disagreement was so strong. It says the Gemara says in Shabbos, because those the Daf Yomi learned this a couple weeks ago, that when the gates would not open in the Beis Hamikdash, Shlomo HaMelech got them to open through mentioning this chus of his father David, and it says, what's the lashon? Shchiru paneim. The enemies of David's faces turned black, meaning these were people who were fine, upstanding, even more than upstanding. Gedolei Yisrael, and the elders in Shevet Binyamin could not reconcile themselves. They felt, and they had the reasons that the Melucha belonged to them at that point. They held it was taken too early from David. Of course, it's a pasuk in the Torah, right? Lo Yasser Shevet Mi Yehuda. They weren't arguing a pasuk in the Torah. They did feel that Binyamin had more rights to it than they were given, and they felt it should have stayed with Binyamin longer. And they could not forgive David HaMelech, and it went even after David was nifter. And you see, it's such a. How do we overcome this idea? I think what I'm saying, like we try to avoid politics. But I don't think it's politics. It was on all the websites. The two Satmar Rebbes are speaking again.
Right. Yeah. So because one had COVID-19 and the one's wife had COVID-19.
One had 19, and their brother,
right,
a younger brother, or actually an older brother, I think, is very, very ill. I don't know how he's doing now.
Well, there was also brother. I mean, look, one thing that's clear. This thing is. I mean, I have a very close friend in Kiryas Yale, and he told me it's mamish like this is what I imagine it was like after World War II.
Yeah, in the New York area, it's very bad.
Yeah, he said every house it's Yisomim and Almanos, and he said, I mean, he had it in Baruch Hashem, he recovered, and his wife recovered, and he said he said this is what it's aimed by Sashay and Sham Mason. This is what I imagine post World War II was like. And I can imagine. And Baruch Hashem here in Cleveland, I mean, we've heard people have had it and serious, not serious, but but it's like crazy. So
right. I think. I don't know the exact story, but I think they go get great schar. I mean, we can't appreciate the machlekes because we don't have the nisayon. We don't have the nisayon of the kavod and the revista and all these different things that they have. But whatever it is, the fact that they made shalom with each other, and the fact is just an amazing thing. So you just wonder, it's like it's something that's hard for us to comprehend. When we see arguing in the Olam HaYeshivas and in the Orthodox world between great people. Both sides are great. Sometimes it's hard. Rav Asher Arieli, forgive me if I mentioned this last time, I don't know, had a big effect. He gave a shmooze the last day of his man. By then he was giving shir on teleconference, so he gave, it's about 4 minutes long. Rav Asher I've never been a shir, but I know he doesn't give shmoozing. He gives a shir. At the end of his shmooze, he spoke for 4 minutes. It's in Yiddish. It's unbelievable. He spoke so powerfully. He was almost crying, and he was talking about more in Eretz Yisrael, but it's affected everybody. The machlokes that has happened in the last several years between two camps in the literature world, and he was saying how he says no one's trying to change anybody's mind, and a person should have a gadol, and they should follow their gadol, and they should follow their mahalach. But he said. And you could even in shita and in opinions, and you could disagree with other groups. It's always been like that. But he said that the Mochemes Achim, right, that there's a civil war, it must stop. He said it has to, and it really is. He spoke so beautifully. I was really moved.
Is that recorded?
I saw it on one of the Israeli websites. Yeah,
I'll have to track it down.
Mamish, Russia was Mamish crying.
Beautiful, wow, beautiful.
And it happens to be. It's interesting. His brother is a Rashiva in more on one of the sides, and he's and I don't think Russia is on that side. I think it probably affects him more. He sees even in families, and he was saying, follow your gedolim, follow your shitas. No one's saying you shouldn't. Here also in America, they had that controversy with voting about the WIZO elections, right? I'm sure he's the World Zionist Congress. And did you
make it? Did you win?
I voted. My Rebbe said to vote.
Yeah, my Rebbe also said to vote. I voted. Just for clarity, my Rosh Hashiva said not to.
So it's really there's Gedolim on both sides,
right.
And I think if someone wants to ask Rav Shach about voting the Israeli election, Rav Shach was very pro-voting. This boy came from a Satmar home, and Rav Shach said you should not vote. This is your Messiah, meaning there has to be this idea where and this to me is one of the big limudim of this situation, where people could have different. Obviously, the opinions have to be. You could always take this crazy far. and say, well, my opinion is that we don't have to keep Shabbos anymore. Chas v'shalom, we're not talking
Right.
about that. We're talking about opinions within the framework of the Torah. But those who follow the Torah, we can disagree even vehemently in theory. But the ikr is that chas v'shalom, that there should never be a level of personal animus. The word I happen to like, animus. I don't get to use that often. That there should be another word I'm going to use in Latin, ad hominem attacks. Right?
Is that like ad 40 arguments?
I'm not even sure. I think it means personal.
Got it. Ad 40 arguments are called v'chaimer, by the way. That's at least an ad 40 argument, according to art school, is a call v'chaimer. Just so you know.
40. All right. Right. So, but there has to be that. There has to be that. People can see different mahalchim. Someone can say, like, people have to ask me about Zoom Siddharim. So there were a couple of Rabbanim who were matter, or others who weren't, and it depends on the situation. I said, the person has to ask a paisik, and he has to ask someone qualified. And at the end of the day, just like by the Shabbos ovens, right? Rav Heinemann has some opinions on the Shabbos ovens. Rav Belsky didn't agree with. That's fine. If you're a Talmud of Rav Heinemann, you should use it. If you're a Talmud of Rav Belsky, you should not use it. But chas v'shalom, mamash chas v'shalom, when it gets to a point where people delegitimize, is that the right way to say it?
Make it, I guess, personal is where it gets
personal.
It's not about the Torah anymore. Where it becomes personal.
There's hatred between brothers. This is really it's and I saw by the Weasel thing also. I saw the evening. I was like disappointed to see certain reactions. Like it's clearly Isser for us or other side also. It's clearly mutter. It's not clear either way. It's obviously not clear either way. It's obviously shitas amongst the gedolim. And like I said, a person should be naig the way the Rebbe is naig. Someone asked me, and I didn't even know about it. Someone asked me, what should I do? My daughter, they were voting in Israel. I said, I don't know. I said, let me find out. Sean Kamenetsky held to vote, and therefore you should vote. But that's only for me. That's not for anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone should ask the Rebbe's.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Probably Zoom things. I can't. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
But we all have different rebbeim for different things, and for me, I did not. We have different. I think nowadays a lot of us have our sort of our court of rebbeim. As opposed to Rebbe Mufak. I think maybe you, it's all Reb Shalom, and every Shiloh goes to Reb Shalom no matter what. But I know with me, I have, I have Rabbi Berger, I have Rabbi Ginsburg, I have different people for different things. So it happened to be that before I ever asked the Shiloh, Rabbi Ginsburg put out a video about it, and they sent it for the I forgot what was the slate called? What was it?
Eretz
HaKodesh, right, for the Eretz HaKodesh slate, and I was like, okay, yeah, what I need to ask the Shiloh for, that's all I need.
A person has to. So for me, I have also other people I speak to. My Supreme Court is Reb Shalom.
Yeah, and for me, my Supreme Court is Rabbi Berger, except for when he says to sometimes he'll say, ask this person, ask that person, which I'm sure Rishon might. Well, I don't know, maybe Rishon doesn't do. I mean, they're age-wise.
Sometimes he asks his father. Sometimes Rishon will ask his father.
Right.
And the takeaway from this is, I have not worn a tie in 6 weeks. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
On Shabbos even, I wear my back shirt the whole Shabbos, which Bli Neder, one of the things I want to start doing, I want to get my back shirt. I'm not wearing as a tish back shirt, but I daven it the whole Shabbos. I daven it the whole Pesach. There was not a tie to be found in my kids wore ties. My kids came down, they were all proud. They found some of my old ties in the closet. They came down to the table with some of my old ties. And I would fight with my wife, why can't I wear this tie? She's like, because it looks like it's 1987 and you're wearing that tie. And I realized now, seeing other people, she was right, like she always is. But it's been so beautiful. No tie, just I daven always with a jacket. Shabbos is a back shirt. I want to start wearing a back shirt after this whole thing's over. But it could be my tie wearing days are over forever. I don't know.
It's funny because with me and my Tish Bekisha, I also wear Tish Bekisha, and I happen to love it, and for a number of reasons. I mean, it was sort of my Messiah. If you can have such a thing on a Tish Bekisha, first of all, Amar Rebbeim do it, or it's in the yeshiva. Every yeshiva did it or does it. But I remember I once heard from a very close friend and mentor from Reb Pesach Kron that he wears dafka very colorful Tish Bekishas. And he said the reason for it is twofold. He said, number one, I wear B'dei Shabbos 7 days a week because I'm a moyel. like even for those of us, like the difference between our big day Shabbos and our big day Chol is just a newer suit, really, or a nicer tie. But he said, whatever my nicest is what I'm wearing because I'm a moil. So I needed something different for the Shabbos table. So that's where the Tish Bekasha came from. And he said that he dafka wears colored ones because he doesn't want to be confused for being a chassid. Because as we know by the chassidim, only the Rebbe wears the colored bekashes and the chassidim wear black. And he said, no one's mistaking me for a Rebbe, so it's I can keep my literature Messiah and then wear the colored bekashes. So that's what I do. I wear colored tish bekasha. Happens to be my family. No one in my family likes it. And it's sort of like this ongoing inside joke that everyone makes fun of my tish bekasha for literally 20 years now. And so much so that like sometimes I'll try and like slip out of the house with Shalom Zachar wearing it. If my kids see, like I get in really big trouble. Like I'm not allowed out of the house with my tish bekasha on. But I'll say, but again, about the Kabbalahs and the davening, and along those lines, like maybe day one, and there's again on the rare occasion when I daven bichis before, I would not put on a hat and jacket if I'd had to daven a quick mincha somewhere, right? I'd just go and daven mincha. I said to day one, I said, no, that's not going to work. So,
but I think also, because now your house is a base consensus.
Exactly, and not only that, but I remember hearing from Rabbi Charlap early on that he wasn't sure if we should be saying Matovu or not. But I've been saying Matovu because right now this is my Olach Yaakov.
Really?
My Olach Yaakov.
I don't hear that I love Chal. It's Psukim anyway. Yeah,
look, it's you're right, but it's with the minig to say Matovu is when you enter the synagogue. So that's where he's like, not sure if you should say it, but he said right now it's a different Matovu, that's for sure. So it's like my kavano for Matovu is first of all that my house should be the Ol Yaakov. And like it's definitely become through this in a much more heicher way than it was before, but also that we should be able to get back to the Olach Yaakov, to the Bate Knesios.
Did you go anywhere?
Yes, we did two awesome Chol trips. One of these, I'm sure, is something that, well, maybe you did do this too. As you know, my family we are frequent rock climbers, as are the Weinbergs, as are your shutef at the yeshiva. I've seen them at the rock climbing gym before. Big rock climbers. Obviously, the rock climbing gym is closed right now, and there's no outdoor rock climbing anywhere near Cleveland. So one thing that rock climbing gives to me is it's an exercise form that I love. And let's face it, if you're going to exercise is important. It's part of Hishmartim Nafsheseichem. But the problem with exercise for most of us is we hate doing it. Is whatever form of exercise we've ever tried, we hate. We can't stand it. It's boring. The important thing with exercise, find exercise you like. If you like playing ball, play ball. If you like, Rabbi Spero, I know with you, it's all about ping pong. Stick to the ping pong.
It's about.
What's that?
Our family has been having fierce Gaga contests.
Right, stick to the Gaga, right? But so I said, okay, I can't rock climb right now. Well, what's something else that I've enjoyed doing? So for me, it's rollerblading. So I bought a pair of rollerblades. Now, mind you, I haven't rollerbladed in 25 years, so getting like used to them again has been a little rough. And we got the few kids who wanted them too. We got for Afi Komen presents. We got some rollerblades for the kids, and we went to the Yavna parking lot and rollerbladed one day.
Oh, nice.
It was great. Although I found out, by the way, this is just a public service announcement. The Yavna parking lot is not very good for rollerblading. It hasn't been paved since they built the building. And next time we're going to go to the Young Israel parking lot, which was recently repaved. So I think that's a better parking lot to go to. But the other one we did is we got in the car and we went to Grand Judaica to get kosher Pesach ice cream. And we drove to Chagrin Falls. We did a scenic drive of Chagrin Falls. I let the kids get out of the car for a few minutes because no one was around when we were right at the falls, at that, the place where the falls are over there. It's beautiful. We had I have to say, the kids loved it. The kids, even when we were talking about it, Nilas Achag, I have everyone go around and say their favorite part of Yontiv. Some of the kids said the trip to Chagrin Falls. So yes, the ice cream at Grand was not cheap, but it was still cheaper than the IX Center. And no one vomited, so it was like just as memorable as the Chol trips of the past. So I'm holding this book here that I wanted to bring on the screen because I sort of say that I bought it Erev Yontiv, but I want to say where it was coming from. I was in Frank's because I had to get like a Havdalah candle and more paraffin for my wife's Shabbos candles, and he said something to me. He said this was on Sunday Erev Pesach. He said, or maybe a week and a half before Pesach, whatever it was, he said, I've only had 3 paying customers today. So now he wasn't trying to make me feel guilty. He's not like that. Chaim Frank is not like that. But I said, Baruch Hashem, with me at least thus far, things are financially stable. Partners in Torah is going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We got the stimulus money came in over Yontiv, so it's, Baruch Hashem. So I said, I'm gonna buy something that I might not usually buy. Usually I try not to, at this point in my Sfarim collection, I really only buy Sfarim when I know I'm going to use them immediately, because I don't really have a place for them in my library. And but I saw a sefer that I said I could see wanting that at some point in the near future. And subsequently, it sold out right away. It was a new sefer, sold out right away. No one can get it. And everyone's saying it's unbelievably awesome. And that is the biography of Noach Weinberg by Jonathan Rosenblum, which I made the mistake on a recent Torah Anytime shir, and I want to correct that now. I mentioned it as it's out of print with Art Scroll, but this is a Feldheim book, which is probably a coup d'etat, because I don't know if Jonas Rosenblum's ever written for Feldheim before, but we'll talk about that another time. But I was thinking about, as you were talking about the altar of Navardik, the story of Noach, again, 100 years later, 75 years later, whatever the 50 years later, is very similar. And that he was also a businessman and was very overtaken as he was going from community to community of how disenchanted the Yidden in America were with Yiddishkeit. And so he gave it all up, moved to Eretz Yisrael. And again, I haven't read the book yet. And I once asked a Talmud for the exact number, and no one knows the exact number. I wonder if it's in the book. Aisha Torah was about the 10th institution he started. People don't realize that. Aisha Torah is huge now, and it's an industry standard in Kiruv and H.com and all these wonderful things and discovery seminars. But he had started numerous institutions that failed, or we wouldn't say failed, but one step closer to the gold standard they ended up creating. And I think it's that he was a Ner Yisrael Talmud. He's not a Navardiker, but definitely that drive of just drive, do, save Klal. He was driven to save Klal Yisrael. He saw the assimilation of Yidden, the assimilation of the Jewish people as literally a pandemic. He saw it as a pandemic, and he said, we have to do whatever we can to start the pandemic. So he started in branches all over the world. At one point, I forget the exact story because I have to get to the book, but he was something like $10 million in debt. And I think I forget the details of the story. He went to another gadol, maybe it was Rav Shach, Rishon Mazam, I forgot who it was, but they couldn't be massing the number of being 10. How do you even get $10 million in debt? But he was so driven that he said, I'll figure out the money later. And he didn't. They didn't. His legacies had to figure out some of it. But again, just being so driven for the sake of Klal Yisrael. It's something we should all learn from, whether it's from the Sefer on the Navardiker that I'm going to get or the Sefer on the Noach Weinberg. It's something we should all learn.
Right.
But we're getting closer to time limit or whatever, if we have a time limit anymore. I don't know if we do or don't. But there's one other just idea that I took out of Yontiv. A lot of times, I have a class that I gave called "Do You Believe in Miracles? I Don't." And the focus on it is really the fact that one of the reasons that Nisim Nigloim, that open miracles don't happen anymore, is because they didn't work when they happened. Right? It was a losing venture, and they never had a long-lasting effect on Klal Yisrael. And you can see that talk from my opinion on it and my take on it, Elul Navi, Bahar Carmel, and the understanding over there, and how the conclusion that's given to Elul Navi is the Kol Dama Madaka, the constant, quiet, whispering voice is really how we have an influence on people. But one thing is for sure that when things happen, where there might not be open miracles, is definitely and Nisim Nistarim, that the Almighty is sending us messages in other ways. And one of the things that I was, obviously a big focus of Pesach is Hallel. We say it over the 8 days of Pesach. If you combine the 8 days of Pesach with also Rosh Chodesh Iyar coming up this week, I guess the biggest concentration of Hallel said at any other point in the calendar, especially if I know you have the minhag of saying it also by davening. I don't personally have that minhag, but that's another 2 times you say it. We say a lot of Hallel over Pesach, and half Hallel, full Hallel. So, I was focusing on Hallel a lot, and again, we're trying to really focus on the words. And then all of a sudden, I got a Shalom Aleichem from the Almighty saying, you should really be focusing on your Hallel. And it came like this: that number one of the things that I don't know if I haven't figured out a way to inculcate this in my daily behavior when the world opens up again, but I've been saying at least the daily Tehillim. There's a minhag that the 150 prakim of Tehillim are broken up, saying 5 a day, or whatever, divide them up actually by length, because Kufia test is 2 days. There's actually yesterday and today. So I've been trying to say the daily Tehillim is exclusive for Rabbi Ginsburg's before Shlema, And the first day I started was a few days ago, was Hallel. That was the day for the 20, whatever it was a few days ago, the 24th day of the month, I think it is, Hallel, right? It's the whole Hallel. That's the daily regiment. And not only that, but one of the nice things, I participated in this before. It's one of the wonderful uses of WhatsApp, that when someone's sick, they make a WhatsApp Tehillim group. And the way that it works is, like, let's say I have a few minutes to say Tehillim right now, I would look on the group and see see whatever parak the last person said. It's like if the last person said Kuf Tes Vav, I'd say Kuf Tes Zayin. So sure enough, this morning I had finished davening, finished saying my daily Tehillim, which is the second part of Kuf Yotes, and I looked to see it, and what is it? It's Kuf Tes Zayin again, which again is Hallel, right? That's part of Hallel. And it's the part of Hallel with a very I think a very important pasuk that I know I've told. It's a very, very, very famous Pesach Kron story, because it's one of his original stories. It's been repeated probably millions of times, and it's the famous story of when I forget which Ger Rebbe was. Is the Imre Emes who died very young? One of the Ger Rebbes died very young, died in his 50s.
Dusharim's son.
Right. So it's the Imre Emes, or no, the Imre Emes was his grandson.
That was great grandson. Avram Mordcha, he was the son of Dusharim, and he never became Rebbe.
Right.
His son was Sfas Emes.
Okay, so the Sfas Emes after the Levaya said, it's a good thing our father had Arichas Yomim. And he said, what do you mean? He died young. He said, no, I didn't say Arichas Shanim. I said he had Arichas Yomim. He made his days long. And that was the Sfas Emes said that. And the Sfas Emes along those lines, his Talmidim once came to him and asked him, what part of Hallel should we really have Kavanah on for success? And he said, you have to have Kavanah in Ana Hashem. And Talmidim came back to him later and said, we've been having Kavanah in Ana Hashem, and like nothing has changed. Imagine the chutzpah sometimes with people in these stories. He said, no, which Ana Hashem are you having Kavanah? He said, well, Ana Hashem Moshiana, Ana Hashem Matzlichana. Please Hashem save us, please Hashem make us be Matzliach. He said, wrong Ana Hashem. He said, the Ana Hashem you need to be having focus on is Ana Hashem ki ani avdecha. Ani avdecha ben amasecha pitachta de Moshirai. Those are the one. That's the Ana Hashem he meant. That Ana Hashem, I'm your servant. I'm the son of a servant. Open me up, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm beholden to you, Almighty. I am yours to do what you want me to do. And sure enough, that was the parak today that after davening I said for Rabbi Ginsburg. So it's like on top of all the Hallel I'm getting, on top of on all the Ana Hashem Ki Ani Avdecha, as I said, just with Pesach and now with the Rosh Chodesh in a few days, again I have like a few more thrown in. That obviously this message, I've told that story over so many times. And it's almost like Hashem saying to me, Ana Hashem Ki Ani Avdecha Pinchas. That's what you need to be thinking about. So I'll close this thought on Hallel really with just two questions for you, Rabbi Spero, that if you ever thought about. First of all, my daughter and I were having a lot of discussions about why we don't say a bracha on Hallel by the Seder. And what's interesting is if you look around, the famous Masifta Haggadah that I love and elsewhere, no one really asked that question. What they focus on, they all focus on, they spend a lot of time on the splitting up of Hallel and how the splitting up of Hallel is not considered a hefsek. So it's interesting that they're very busy that it's not a hefsek, that we break it up with Shulchan Aruch, but no one ever asked the question about why don't we say brachos on it, which because we split up is why we don't say brachos on it. But it's interesting. It's been so much.
There's a Rimagash that talks about it. The Rimagash says a Meridi Gateris. The Rimagash says the reason why you don't make a bracha on Hallel by the Seder is because it's not a tzivui. It's supposed to be an organic feeling of Akaras type.
Oh, beautiful.
And the other terutzim are that since it's split up, you don't make a bracha. The well-known Lavush, and the Gaon both say the same thing. They say the idea that why is Hallel split up by the Seder? Because it's said on two separate things. The first Hallel is on the Gulas Mitzrayim, and the second Hallel said after the Suda is not on Mitzrayim. It's on the Gula Asida, the future Gula. And there's a lot of allusions during the Pesach Seder. Right? That's why we eat the egg, Al Tisha B'Av, the same night. There's a lot of allusions during the Seder to the Gula Asida, the fifth Kais of Evesi.
Right, and see Rabbi Landis' class on the magic number is 5, and we discussed here on this podcast how the 5 is all over the Seder, and especially in Nirtza. Nirtza is really where at Nirtza we should be at 5, right? That's where that's where we should be. So it
is asked why we don't make a bracha.
Yeah.
One of the many tirutzim. Well, the tirutzim is that it's included in the bracha of Gal Yisrael. We say the bracha of Gal Yisrael right before the second kais. It's included in there. Some say it's kail in the other midst of the night. Therefore, it's really one bracha on the Mekadosh Yisrael Vazman. There's a few different answers given of why.
Yeah. Right. It's one of those. I think it's one of those sugyas that, like, and I hate to say it's going to want to sound like an apikoros, but oftentimes we have a kasha where the kasha is so much better than the teretz. Like there's like for me, the one on Pesach that always bothered me. There's still just not a teretz. It's great with me. Is the whole. We ate matzah while we were already in Mitzrayim. They brought the korban Pesach and ate matzah, and they already had matzah, and like, what's the whole we eat matzah because we're rushing out of Mitzrayim? Like they had it the night before. Like what, and there's a lot of discussion why they ate matzah there. And
there's such good on that. There's such good terutzim. There's parrots. Right. There's so many good terutzim on there.
There is a lot. I've just yeah. There's I
get with the Pesach. The whole essence of matzah is a stira.
No,
lechem ayni and lechem gula. I think that, but I think also, by the way, I think you have to give credit to the Rimagash. I think it's a great teretz. The whole idea of the Rimagash is that the Chacham did not want to institute saying Hallel because the whole purpose of the Seder is chayvat miras tzatmai.
Right.
The serious is if you left Mitzrayim, and therefore it becomes this organic feeling. I think that Rimagash is meritic.
No, I hear it. Yeah.
If you look at the Torah brings down the Ritzpah. The Ritzpah holds that you say two brachas on Hallel by the Seder.
Right. Yeah.
You make a bracha before the Suda and the one after the Suda, whatever the case is. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just, in one other just some Hallel along these lines is, and this just, it really struck me with one of the days I was saying Hallel and I looked into this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's right in the second paragraph. I actually thought about this on Shvi Shel Pesach, which is very, because it's the paragraph of Hallel that talks about Kriyas Yamsuf. It's the second paragraph of Hallel, a second parak. This parak Kufiyah Daled 114 in Tehillim, and something jumped off the page at me. We say, where is it here? I'm sorry, I lied to you. It's no, I'm sorry, it's up. Right. We say right again. We say Haisa Yehuda Lekadsho Yisrael Mam Shalosav. Right? That it should be for Yehuda, or that Yehuda became his sanctuary, his kadsho, the kodesh of Hashem, and Yisrael Mam Shalosav, Yisrael his dominion. Right? So it struck me because the Jews were never referred to as Yehudim until much later, right? Probably after the Golus Yisrael, after Sancheriv and the Assyrians wiped out the 10 northern tribes, and all you had left was Yehuda. That's probably, we weren't colloquially called Jews until then. Again, by Purim, which is after that point, we're already called Yehudim. A lot of discussion about why we're called Yehudim, besides just practically that's all that was left after the 10 northern tribes were wiped out. But David HaMelech, this David HaMelech writing referencing Kriyas Yamsuf. What was this point about Haisa Yehuda Lekadsho Yisrael Mam Shalosav? So it's interesting that the Rosh says, I was looking around, the Rosh says that what happened was at Kriyas Yamsuf, Nachshon ben Aminadav was the first one to jump in and, so to speak, made the whole thing happen. And Nachshon ben Aminadav was from Shevet Yehuda, was from the tribe of Judah. And he was a Nasi. Right? He was the Nasi, right? He was the head of Shevet Yehuda. And says the Rosh, it's a Pella. There's a Pella. I don't understand this. Maybe you understand, Rabbi Spero. He says that solidified Yehuda's position as the Melech, as the Kadsho, as the sanctified of Hashem, which is really a Pella because this is long after Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu already said, as you quoted before, Lo Yasser Shevet Mi Yehuda, that the Shevet won't leave. That Yehuda will be the Nasi, Yehuda will be the Melech, and the David HaMelech in Tehillim, at least according to the Rosh, seems to apply that it wasn't solidified until Nachshon ben Aminadav. You could say that Yaakov Avinu was speaking the bracha was a nevuah, was speaking about future things, and that that's which is similar to what they say about the matzah Mitzrayim, by the way, without the stira point, that it's representing something that would happen in the future. That it was in fact when Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped in as the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda, that solidified it. Even though Yaakov said it as a nevuah in his bracha before he passed away, it wasn't until this point where it was solidified. That's the best I've come up with. But there's a fascinating point that just jumped off the page. Again, when you're paying attention to davening, things jump off the page and you got to stop and think about it a little bit. just came up hollow. So it's just, something there, my friend. And there's always something there, and the Almighty is always speaking to us in different ways. We just have to be listening. That's the bottom line. We have to be listening, and something we're going to keep talking about until the world opens up, and then we're going to keep talking about when the world opens up again. Whatever the positive changes we've gone through now, let's figure out ways on how we're going to hold on to them and become better people in the long run because of them.
Right, I hear you. That is the truth.
Any closing words, Rabbi Spero?
Welcome to the guest.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time. I know we went a little overboard here. I apologize, but hey, we didn't have an episode last week. So please continue to send us your feedback wherever you're listening to it. Share it with all your friends. Tell them it's the best podcast in the world. And Rabbi Spero loves that line. And in the meantime, a big old fat welcome to the guest.
Welcome to the guest.